How we doing, everybody? Seems weird to be recording a video when less than 12 hours, including sleep, we were just chatting together in the conference room on campus. That said, I greatly appreciate your time last night. I thought it was really cool. We got a chance to meet together. I apologize that, we had to meet so late, given, how this class was set up. Also, I'm greatly, normally the way I flow in class, there's time for a lot more dialogue, and I'm not as top down with regards to the control and flow of the conversation. I didn't want that class to be going until 10:30, 11 o'clock, which it could have. And normally that class is a 2-hour and 20 or 2-hour and 30-minute class. Leadership happens to be one of my favorite topics. So you can tell that given, the speed and the tone that I was using last night, I really wanted to make sure we hit all the points, but I was also pushing, with my foot on the pedal. I'm a lot slower when I do my videos. A little bit more relaxed. Okay. It'll be different for the Celebration of Progress class. What I do want to do is I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about the cases. In general, I thought we all did a relatively good job with the case. My main comment to all of you is please answer the question at hand. Particularly, and this wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I know a lot of people had this half-page, full-page, page-and-a-half preamble prior to getting to question one. That's fine and dandy. Some of them were real good, some of them were okay, but none of them answered question one. I really only need you to place the question on the page and respond to 1, 2, and 3. I've read the case. I know the case upside down and inside out. Just answer the question. I went through 20 of these, and it makes it much easier for me if I just go in and look at items 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Speaking of the case, let's look at question 1. The case states that there's only 3 ways to bring in more revenue. Okay? 1 is increase visits per customer, increased average spending per visit, and attract new customers. Do you feel Operation Upmarket would accomplish any one or more of these goals? If you were in the C-suite reporting to Jill, what would be your recommendation? Now, the first thing as a student I would look at it is this is a 30-point question. All the other ones are significantly less. If I were to look at this, I would have spent the most amount of time with question 1 to make sure I nailed this puppy. This should be the longest of all the questions. Question 2 is 10 points, should probably be the shortest, and the other one should be, somewhat longer than question 2, just on average. Given the way the case is set up, I honestly believe there is no right or wrong answer for questions 1, 2, and 3. I saw some incredibly interesting in favor of 1, 2, and 3. No way 1, 2, and 3. Yes 1, but not 2, but 3. And you either supported your answer well or didn't support your answer well. That's what I was looking for here. I'm going to give my opinion in a second, but that's really what was going on in this question. Now, whether you guys realized it or not, when you were answering your questions, you said, maybe bring in more visits per customer. It could bring in more visits per customer. If this, then perhaps more increased spending per visit. Believe it or not, a lot of you were hedging your bets even while you were answering. And the reason why is we really have no idea whether Operation Upmarket is going to work. In my opinion, it's an incredibly risky strategy. Incredibly risky strategy. And while I talk about that, let me talk about a story a few years back that was profiled in the Wall Street Journal from Kay Jewelers. A few years back, Kay Jewelers, which is one of these jewelry stores in the mall, they wanted to increase average spending per visit and attract new customers. And they hired a new CEO from another jewelry store that was more upscale than Kay. And they're like, okay, we're going to change the merchandise out. We're going to put in higher quality, higher pricing stuff into the stores. And we'll attract new customers. And these customers will spend more, and therefore our revenues will increase. So Kay went through this process, right? And they ended up burning the candle on both ends. That's the expression. So Kay tried to attract the new customers, and they didn't get any of the newer, higher paying customers to come to Kay Jewelers. And at the same time, the loyal customers to Kay that were used to I think the average price point was, let's say $110 at Kay, and they wanted to bump it up to like $250 to $300 at Kay. They didn't attract any of those new, higher paying customers. And in the same time, they alienated all their old existing customers that didn't want to pay $300 per visit on average. They wanted to pay $110 per visit on average. These customers are why Kay was Kay. So they ended up getting slammed on both ends. They didn't attract any new customers. They alienated and lost all their existing customers, and they were left with nothing. The CEO got fired right after the Christmas holiday, and after coming up with the strategy. It's not sustainable. I mean, it's arguable that something like this is similar to what happened to JCPenney's. JCPenney's went through this massive reconstruction to see if they can attract a new customer base to their stores. And the CEO knew that it was risky and knew it was going to take a long time, and he asked everyone to be patient. And you can't reinvent the wheel. But the thing is, how much time is too much time? JCPenney's was bleeding red, losing 40% revenue per quarter. They did it for 5 or 6 quarters in a row. They just couldn't sustain it, even if it was the right strategy or not. And the scary part of it is, now JCPenney's is in Never Never Land. They didn't convert all the way over to the new strategy. They're abandoning it. Their old strategy is persona non grata, and they didn't have any customers there either. So now JCPenney's is even in a worse situation than they've ever been before, because they alienated all their old customers. They didn't attract any new customers. And now they're left with nothing. I think it's rather peculiar that and some of you picked up on this, and some of you, and I wrote it in your case comments, that why the heck are they not doing, as in Paradise Park, any marketing research, or at very least a test market at a park or two, to see if any of these goals are going to be achieved? That's the craziest thing about this question. I mean, where's the marketing research? I mean, I know we say there's some rigorous numbers have been worked up, and it seems like it would be feasible. But they were cost numbers from the corporate's perspective. We have no idea whether, i.e. question 4, you're really going to piss off our customers, our existing customers. There is a very high potential for this thing, if they were to say, okay, rubber stamp it, let's put it in all 19 parks, incur all those costs to transform the lines and hide the lines and do all the marketing and all like that, and then it not work at all because the customer base will not adapt to the new program. And then what? I think it's an incredibly risky strategy. I am not in favor of Operation Upmarket. I do not have enough confidence, because I don't see any marketing research data, that any of these 3 goals are potentially a reality. I mean, it's Paradise Parks, right? It's not Disney. It's not Universal. You know, it's attracting a different customer base specifically because you don't have to get on an airplane to go visit the park. You don't need a hotel stay. You don't need multiple stays in the park to see all the attractions. You could do it in one day. I think it's incredibly risky. Is Paradise Parks market-oriented? No, not even close. You know, and I wrote this on a number of your cases that if they were market-oriented, they wouldn't be in this pickle to begin with. If they were market-oriented, they would know the answer to questions 1, 2, or 3 before they even tried to go for it. You know, they're behind the curve in being market-oriented. They're seeing a trend out there, not knowing if the trend actually applies to theme parks or not. What did they call those people again? Mass affluence. Okay. Does mass affluence means they're going to upscale restaurants? Does that mean that's going to translate over to a theme park? You know, even the way the meeting is being held, you know, this seems like it's the CFO show with Nathan. Now, I have no problem with accounting and I have no problem with CFOs. But this really should be a cross-functional inter-firm, you know, strategy. And it sure seems like only one department is pushing this and everybody else is voting up or down, yes or no. And it seems more like politics and alignment and alliances to see whether this thing is going to go or not. You know, Jill's making a decision, but she's making a decision almost in isolation. You know, I don't see any of the major components of market orientation being part of this firm. They've lost track of the competition who have gotten bigger. But more important, they have no idea about their consumers in their parks and whether 1, 2, or 3 is going to be actually legit or not. There's no data there. According to the case, overall park attendance of the 19 parks slightly exceeds 13 million people. All right, that is a very large number. And chances are each of those 13 million contribute some amount of revenue to the overall, more of a very balanced. Everybody spends on average, let's say $110 every time they visit. How does Paradise Parks have a steep skew or a shallow skew? They have not only a shallow skew, they have probably one of the shallowest of all skews. There's no way in a steep skew you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 customers that are responsible for an over majority of the revenue of your firm. It's the 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. I can't see the 80-20 rule coming into, if 100 people a day, do Operation Upmarket, right? And those 120 people, or say 300 people, of the 5,000 that come into the park that day, there's no way that those 300 people are going to produce 80% of the revenue for that day. It's just not going to happen. In an old school CRM mentality, when our original CRM articles were written, it's highly advisable not to pursue a CRM strategy when you have an extreme shallow skew. Now, in a technology world, we know with Amazon and eBay and Netflix, it's possible to pursue a CRM strategy with a shallow skew, but this tend to works better in a technology type environment. Otherwise, we shouldn't have a CRM type strategy, and many of you kind of were going in this direction. You can do more of a loyalty card type strategy. And a loyalty card strategy and a CRM strategy are not necessarily the same thing. You know, you would think that I would say that a loyalty card strategy is a step in the direction towards full CRM. But I don't think it's anywhere close to being a full CRM kind of thing. You know, shallow skew, in my opinion, this really undermines a lot of the main arguments that Nathan was trying to make for Operation Upmarket. And again, if there's no data to say whether 1, 2, or 3 are actually possible or not, it doesn't bode well. Question 4, First Crush. In this question, I really wanted to get your opinion. You know, this is one of those questions that they throw into the case to try to bend your brain a little bit, to see if they can lean you in a direction that you would overly analyze this conversation. The same way the case, at the end of the case, where she's in like the first class lounge, eating a fig or something like that. Fresh figs. You know, the airline scenario has nothing to do with Paradise Parks. Okay? And this conversation with Adam should really, you know, it's fluff. It's there to distract you. I wanted to see what you were going to say. But the Paradise Parks has to move on, and Paradise Parks has to change with the times. You know, her father, Fritz, and the culture and the environment that he grew up in is not the same one that Jill has to manage in. So, I was curious to see what you guys were going to do there. We've talked a lot about social media this semester, and Paradise Parks is not a social media firm. Does that mean Paradise Parks should avoid social media? Hell no, and most of you said so much so. What should they do? I mean, given how, you know, something as simple as, and a few of you went there with this, when we would go to Disney, they would have these Kodak moments, would be like the perfect spot in the park. They actually even landscaped it for you, put a sign there and say, stand here with this beautiful background of the castle, take the picture. Well, just prime the visitors, you know, give them one of those things for them to stick their heads through so that they'll upload it up on the Facebook. You know? Give them a little platform to stand up on so that the loop of the roller coaster behind them, their head is like in the middle of the loop. It's very simple. You need that viral word of mouth to legitimize the park and to, you know, get people to have it top of mind in someone's Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, Google Plus kind of a stream. You know? It's not free, but it's extremely low cost. There are multiple things that Paradise Parks could have done through social. I saw some very good ideas here. Some of them seem very basic, but, you know, it's not basic would fit the cause. You know, beyond the information presented in the case, what out-of-the-box strategies would you recommend to end the red ink at Paradise Parks? Well, a couple of us, and maybe you guys are accounting or finance majors or concentrations, did a good job of doing more of the internal, okay, let's look at the books of the firm versus, okay, let's create some incredibly wild marketing promotion kind of things. I didn't care either way that you went with this question. I just wanted to see some effort here. A couple of us only had a couple sentences here, and that wasn't enough. It was a 15-point question, and your question 2 was 4 times as long. You know, that's not going to work. Right? But, you know, I want to know why this firm is bleeding red. I want to know why this firm, I would look at the balance sheet first, is struggling. You know, the easiest potential strategy they could do is just raise the price by $5. You know, that could be something as simple as raise the price. You may have less people coming in. Okay, the lines will be shorter, but you'll make more money per person, right? The other thing to do is to monetize them better once they get inside the park, which is what the upscale restaurants were doing, which is what the premium gifts were doing. But Disney is spectacular at monetizing you once you're already in the park in ways that you would never even imagine. All those premium breakfasts with the characters, all those photos that you then get reproduced because it's a professional photographer and you have this card and all like that. They're extremely good at creating revenue streams once you're inside the park. It's something as simple as providing transportation to the park. That would be a fantastic idea. But I would want to look at ways that they could figure out. Operation Upmarket's actually going to create more of a cost structure to this firm. They have to expend money. I would want to see where they're being inefficient on their balance sheet first before I go forward with anything along those lines. We did have some very cool responses here. Overall, I think we did relatively well on this first case. I thought I saw some solid detail here on this first case. We will have one more case. It probably is going to be a little bit longer and a little bit harder, but then again, we're going to have about another 5 more weeks of articles to go through before we get to that you can use for ammunition. I really enjoyed how the articles we used this semester were integrated through into some of your responses. I had some of us go, 5, 6, 8, 10 references deep. That makes your professor smile. Outside of that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. I thank you for last night. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, okay? Thanks.